Welcome back, Rev. Here we are.
Week 2. I'm glad to be back.
Oh, we managed to say that we do it again, right? Even though, all right, we had a whole week to think about it. So I'm excited. Thank
Now,
you.
here's what I know is that any good habit, any good experience, you do it again and again and again, and it gets better, and it gets better, and it gets better.
Practice, practice, practice. We
Yep.
know somebody that loves that kind of word, don't we? He's our.
How you get to Carnegie Hall, that's how you grow.
That's exactly right. So we're pressing into this whole idea of faith as a grounding, and then how it relates to other things, specific things. Sometimes they're a little more broad than they are specific, but we're going to look for the friction. We're going to assume that in any interaction between faith and that there will be some degree of friction involved.
Well, I like the idea we're going to ground things here. You're going to have friction immediately before you even fill in the blank of the and. Faith and. How about faith and faith?
I was
Faith
thinking
and
the
faith
same
and
thing.
faith and faith. There's already friction in the room.
I was thinking the same thing. We really didn't put that, as a topic in our the stuff that we put together, but faith and faith. That could certainly be.
That's my world. I
An
get to live in
episode.
that world. I espouse a spiritual idea that's changed my life, and already there's friction because there's 10 other faith beliefs in the room that are disagreeing with me.
Well, we might get there in this episode, but if not, we're going to make sure that we put
All right.
that in on a specific. So I think we ended the last episode just talking about some of the topics that we might interact with. And keep in mind that those aren't necessarily just conversations between us. We talked about social justice last week as a topic, faith and social justice. I'm going to dig, and I hope we can get somebody on the podcast that's going to interact with us that is a social justice advocate, that is in that world, that understands that world better, that has the friction, that's it directly.
In that world, there are many dimensions. There are people that are into social justice that are holding a sign on the street in a march. There are those at the Capitol. They're actually, on the steps of the Capitol asking for politicians to pay attention. There are social justice activists in my church who are saying we need to be more vocal. We need to be more proactive about changing the face of the planet.
That's part of the deal.
And they're in my face sometimes saying, your religion, what we're teaching from the platform every week, needs to be more hard hitting.
Well, hello.
So it's everywhere you can find it. It's not just my church.
Exactly. Not just your church or not just any individual. I mean, I have a little magnet that's on the side of my car. It was on my wife's car before, but now she has a plastic. It doesn't stick anymore, all right? But it sticks to the side of my car, and it says, if you want peace, work for justice. Yeah. And there's all kinds of these little quips, but take them in the whole, there's something to it. There has to be action. There has to be a different paradigm, and what happens when you run it through your faith paradigm.
Yeah. This I mentioned last week on the podcast about a partnership I was doing with a Baptist minister.
Right.
And that thing has happened now. But the theme of that whole presentation was amen. Now what? From altar to action. Get busy. When the hymn stops and the sermon's over with and you sing the last song, that's when the work begins. It's not an ending.
Right.
It's now you make this to the streets.
What do you say every week?
I'd say every week. If what we've done in this room stays in this room, it's been maybe an entertainment, beneficial to a point. But if what we've done in this room goes out those doors and the world's a little bit better because we had the guts and the courage to put it into play, it's been the most valuable. I'd like to say hour, but it's an hour and 15 minutes. You could have spent.
It's good stuff. It's a good challenge. And there's ways to follow up on that. And I don't want to call it hold people accountable, but here's what I found.
Well, isn't it James who said faith without works is dead?
I do believe that's in the Bible, right? But it's such a practical saying. It doesn't, even though it's in the Bible, which is good advice, it can be applied all across all faiths, to practice your faith. And I believe that there is a grounding in all faiths that's common. Let's use one word, love.
Yep.
Right? However it's expressed, however it's talked about, right? It's there. And so now how do you go out there and love. You know, I
Well,
mean, those
exactly. It's easy to
commonalities.
Sunday mornings or Saturday night, whenever you worship, oh, let's talk about love, and it feels so good. If the loving actions are not Monday through Saturday, then it's a house built on sand. It's a nice, pretty idea that's not being lived, and that will cause friction in of itself. Within me, wow, what I just said, was that loving? Is that what I would have said on Sunday? Probably not. I need to be willing to call it out.
There we go. We're finding friction all the time. It's just we have conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to come up all the
Well, and
time.
there's gonna be levels to that friction. It's gonna be the internal, "Okay, what I just did wasn't loving." What they're doing in the politics, what they're doing in my community, in my church, what they're doing on the streets in my neighborhood, it's not loving.
Mhm.
Do I have a voice to speak up with love against that which is not loving?
Right. Well, and yes, you have a voice, but will you use it?
Yep, exactly.
Have you learned how and don't have the fear to say, you know, let's talk about this because this is something that's really burdened me, and I would love for us to just flesh it out a little bit if we could do that. Would you mind doing that with me? Would it be okay? And you create
Yep.
that safe space, at least to start with.
And
'Cause
that's an art form. It is not easy.
you're
But if the
right.
intention is to create safe space, you do that first before you get into the friction.
Right.
There's a common agreement, a common bond, but fear is going to be there.
Right.
Jesus, he left the planet and he told his guys, all right, now the work is yours. Go forth. They were shaking in their boots,
Right.
yet they took it to the streets. They
But I
took the
gave
message.
you the power, how you can tap into it. I'm
Yep.
giving you that example.
Yeah.
Right? And this is a learning process for me because sometimes I don't create safe space. You know,
Well, but that's a human
Yeah,
condition.
I
We go
just-
unconscious and it's like, oh, that wasn't safe. Let
Right.
me back up for a second.
so
Apologize, make amends, and
Right.
move back in.
and you move on. All right? So a lot of what we're going to talk about, and this excites me, has to do with progressive perspectives. Now, again, you can throw that out there in culture, you can throw that out there in religion, you can throw that out there in relationships, you can throw that out there in politics, everything that we can talk about from a subject standpoint can be progressive, which means
That's the only thing that's informed the whole planet as we know it today. You have to progress. We're moving forward.
Right.
Sometimes it's a good move, but sometimes it's not. But there is learning when you go there.
It's
And
yes.
if instead of status quo, I'm stuck in my religion, I'm stuck in my politics, and there's no more truth than what I know in this little box, there's no progress.
That's right.
Progressives, and sometimes in some cultures, been given a really bad rap.
Right.
Well, we
right.
exist in the beautiful world we live in today because of progress
Well.
and progressive thinkers.
If you're not progressing, the view never changes either, right?
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorite guys is Rob Bell. You know this.
Uh-huh.
And he did a talk years ago I think I was actually at that session when I saw him. But anyway, he did the whole whiteboard thing, right? He starts on the left and he goes all the way as he's talking and he's writing all the way across this huge big whiteboard. And toward the end, he said, so you know what? You know what you see here? God, the universe, the divine is pulling everything forward. It's not static. I wrote it up here, but it's not static.
Life is not static. Love is not static. God is not static. It's movement. That's what it is. It's vibration.
Yeah.
Life itself is vibration and movement.
Right.
That's what I call God. That's a synonym for me. For God is life, love, light. It's constantly moving.
Absolutely. It's because it's constantly it's not revealing itself to us. We're just getting it more and more and more. There's nothing being withheld. Okay, Rev. God says, now I think I'll show you this. Or now you get to do this. No. It's all given. It's all out there for us.
The way they put it in the Baha'i tradition is progressive revelation. They actually lean into it, and it's part of their doctrine, progressive revelation. That means it's not that what happened 1,000 years ago was wrong,
Correct.
or 2,000 years, or 10,000. It's not what you believed 5 minutes ago is wrong. It's about the progressive. Now I'm able to comprehend a little more of God, a little more of love and life. And it's not tearing anything down. But I tell people all the time, if you're running away from something, that's not a good idea. You're
Right.
running to something.
Well,
I'm
there's fear
running.
involved with
The
that one.
river is going to the ocean of greater possibility than anything I've ever thought. I'm cooperating with that progressive river that, one, is designed to buoy me up and lift me up, but two, to take me to the ocean. And there are those people that go, oh, this is too scary. I'm getting out of the river. I'm good with where I'm at right now.
Well, the reason it can be scary is because there's friction between us and rocks. There's friction
Yeah.
between us and whatever else might be hidden under there, the bank, a tree. When you're moving, you're going to have friction. You're going to collide or you're going to brush by, whatever. You have to, there's no certainty. There's no absolute certainty
No,
to any of
but
this.
if the uncertainty is causing me to be so fearful
Correct.
that I just don't get into the river, and that's okay. I come from a family. That's what they do. Never change our paradigm, and I can go back to my parents and visit my family. It's
Right.
the same environment that was there 50 years ago. There hasn't been any growth, but I don't begrudge them. I'm
Right.
not going to fight them. I'm going to sprinkle ideas and, hey, the river's going to someplace. You might want to consider it.
Right.
Not because they're dumb or stupid, but only because I've had something that's allowed me to taste the ocean.
Well, yeah.
And it caused friction. I hit rocks. I hit rocks to this day.
No kidding.
And I used to be afraid of them. I was part of that family. Now I invite them.
Right. Well, and you could also let's keep on this analogy a little bit. I don't want to run the rabbit trail, but let's take this analogy a little bit more. So now I'm in a raft. I've decided I'm going down the river.
Yeah.
And at any point in time along that river, oh, here's a 4 coming up, right? Nope, I'm out of the boat. All right. I'm stop. Okay, pull over to the side. I'm getting out of the boat. All right. And that's fine. Because we all need to journey on the river or on the river of life at the pace that that we're going to go based upon who we are. And we may stop and then go back in. We may just stop and
that happened in my life. We were on a river raft trip, my wife and I, and we knew there was a big 5 rapid coming up, and she was scared to death. And they told her when she got in the boat, she didn't have to do that. She could walk around. She got out, and then the guide started telling us, everybody's necessary, everybody's needed. But he went and we walked a trail to see. We got out of the boat to methodically plan how are we going to handle this. Now, she cried and screamed the whole time, but she got back in the boat very consciously, and she marked that moment. And I asked her to do it again. In that moment, she said, "Let's go, baby." Now, she probably wouldn't do it.
No,
But there was a getting out of the boat was a necessary part of her feeling comfortable enough to get back in the boat.
Well, what we're talking about now is another part of the conversation that I can't wait for us to specifically get to because we're generalities at this point for a couple episodes. We just want to lay the groundwork. Navigating. We have to navigate life every single moment, let alone every single day or hour. I mean, every single moment we have to, navigate life's circumstance, the friction, whatever. Well, I mean, all of the above.
It's methodical planning. We get out of the boat of politics. If I don't get out of the boat of my political belief system, my religious belief system, whatever it might be, then I'm coming into the conversation unconscious. I must be consciously to keep the intention, to keep the purpose at the forefront. Sometimes that means it's about to get like rapids here. I'm a little bit scared. I'm a little bit afraid. So let me step out of the boat for a minute. Remember, this is what Jesus did. He said, come apart for a while. And I say, come apart for a while, or in a while, you're going to be coming apart. That is essential to the planning.
That was a meme.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I think that's a part of what we're going to do here. I said earlier in the last episode, I'm going to invite you to take a breath. I'm going to invite myself to take a breath.
Right.
Okay, now enter back in.
Right.
But don't take the breath and run.
And that's a life lesson too, not just a conversation by any means, right? So navigating, I want you, I'm looking forward to you helping me, mentoring me, guiding me so that I can do life, navigate it better.
Oh gosh, I thought you were doing that for me. Oh, could it be a both-end experience?
It could be. Let's hope so.
Man, I hope so for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And so we press into the complexities, and when we do that, we don't run from them and we don't hide from them. There's the friction again. We're going to find it, and we may only find here's a kind of cool thing that I thought about. When we peel the onion back, when we we turn the rocks over, when we just flail it, whatever you want to do, we cut it apart, we open it up. There may be layers again in that particular incident, let alone across the board,
Right.
that, oh, we're scratching and here's the sandpaper. Okay, all right. And then as we deal with that and we dig a little deeper, oh, wait a minute here now. Okay, this is rock against rock a little bit here, whatever it might
It's a
be.
little rougher grade of sand.
Right. So again, don't stop the process. I don't want us to stop the process and go, oh, there was the friction. We dealt with it. Boy, that was a great conversation, without saying, did we miss something though? Should we have gone should we peel back the next layer or not? And maybe the answer there is no. That was good enough. For now, that's fine.
But that to me, that you just described grace. I get the ability to ask the question and to be okay with whatever answer comes. Should we? Could we? Maybe yes, maybe no. But we get the choice, and that's leaning in, taking a breath. Leaning in, taking a breath. This is how growth happens. It's not just dumping, head first and go, let's fight, let's have it out.
Correct.
It's like, oh, there's a little bit of sandpaper. Let's sit here for a minute.
Yeah.
And let's be friends for a minute in this disagreement. Take a breath. Now let's go a little farther in. And you're going to find things you didn't even know were there.
That's for sure. But you use an interesting word there. And I think it's critical. I think we're going to say that, and we need to say it over and over and over again.
Over and over.
Maybe. That in itself, right there, makes a conversation healthy, makes a conversation where we can learn from each other. If your first response is no, sorry, no, that ain't where I'm coming
That's a wall.
from. There you go. But if we're just willing to say, maybe, all right.
If I come into this relationship or conversation with knowing that I have a corner on the market of truth, you've shot any exploration whatsoever.
Yes.
But if I can kick those walls down, those barriers, and turn them into bridges, something holy can happen. And to me, that is grace, because at any minute I can decide a thought, an action, a word that puts up a wall or puts down a bridge.
Well, we've talked, yes. And what you were just saying is, if we're willing to put down certainty, right? If we're willing to lay that to the side, sure, I think there are things we can be certain of. All right. But in general, a lot of times we don't get certainly not absolute certainty, because that's a
dangerous road.
That's okay.
You're about to be humbled.
But even if you think something is certain, that's okay to hold that. But the better philosophy that I was exposed to was, let's go for clarity. Let's go for as much clarity as each of us needs in the circumstance to be able to say, okay, let's move on.
And that clarity could be that I understand why I believe the way I do.
Could be.
How I got here, but I also understand how you got to where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And I want clarity. And I have to have clarity for you. I want to understand and be clear about you and your experience and your beliefs as much as I am of my own.
Right.
But if I come into a conversation with, I need to be right here. and so I don't give a hoot what you think or how you got to where you are. I'm right. No, that's a wall.
Well,
and kicking down walls will cause friction.
Right. And sometimes, so here's what I'm thinking right now as we're going through this. When we encounter friction in a relationship, mostly that happens, or
that's the best arena for it.
Sometimes there's a time to say, not the right time.
Yep.
There's friction there. My sense of wisdom, it tells me, and sensitivity and everything like that, this isn't the right time.
Yeah.
to deal with that friction. And we want to make sure that we agree to each other that just because we find it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to deal with it in the moment. Sometimes all we need to do is point it out. Wait a minute, there's some friction there between faith and that. I don't think I'd ever really seen that being, at odds at all or having a friction. All right.
That's the first step. I have an awareness.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm conscious enough to have an awareness that this is new territory, perhaps even dangerous territory.
Right.
I must treat it with kindness and enough compassion. I must treat the person or the idea or the religion or the political belief system with enough kindness that I stay conscious and I stay aware and I know maybe this is a moment not to dive in.
Right. And even if it is the right moment and you really decide, oh, we got to talk about that. Kindness, confrontation, and maybe I don't even call that's probably the wrong word. Disagreement over perspective isn't unkind unless you make it unkind.
Well, exactly.
Right. Okay. Can be. But the ability to say, you know what? I look at that a little differently, and here's why. Because I connected dots this way. Now, there's my paradigm, right? That can be kindly done.
Oh, yes.
But it's still, there's still a friction there, right?
Well, Jesus created friction.
Oh, gosh.
And, in most cases, this might cause some friction to say this, in most cases, he did it very lovingly. Some cases, he was just kind of ticked off. He got to his edge and needed to take a breath, and he did. But the reality is, the greatest masters throughout time have displayed what you just talked about. Am I the right person to make the right change in this right timing? And many times he said yes.
Right.
Many times he said no. And he taught me, know your yes, know your no. That means stay conscious and be aware.
Yeah.
This is the moment to lean into this friction.
And again, to me, one of his main, if not the, I don't know if you could say the, it's like saying, give me your favorite movie. How do I get a favorite? All right. I don't know. But one of the things that I absolutely appreciate about Jesus is that when he's teaching about these times, when we're just so freaking frustrated and we're angry and we don't know what to do with it, and we're, what he said was, you're right. You probably can't handle it, to be honest. But you know what? If you will tap the power of the Spirit, of that faith, have faith in that greater than, you will be able now to tap a power that can.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Matt.
Yeah.
Is it possible to live into the mystery, to discover what's in the mystery without friction? Have we as a population been so afraid of friction that the mystery just is a thing that we don't ever explore? So the unknown, the information, the God, the essence, the love, the capacity of this universe, we haven't even come close because we're afraid of the friction, but it's the very portal to the discovery.
Yeah, I think so. I think because we are who we are, from time immemorial, I mean, generation upon generation upon generation, whether faith was in the equation at some point, religion, whatever it might be, I think that in order to experience the greater than, I think it's almost natural that there's going to be a friction between our egoic self that we've just created over time and the truth or the revelation or the resurrection of our true self.
So could it be that this great designer, known by many names, we'll call it God, put us on earth, and we're on earth to find our way back home to the garden, to God, to oneness, to light and love, in this laboratory, which is Earth, which means you have to have friction. You cannot get back there without the friction. So the argument is a portal to something beautiful and holy. And those who are afraid of it will never touch the hem of the garment.
Almost again, there's maybe,
Yeah, maybe.
Everything, look around us. nature, I mean, not necessarily man-made stuff, but nature, human beings, animals, trees, the Grand Canyon, whatever you want to pick, everything is birthed from friction.
Yeah.
Whether it's a birthing canal, whether it's a tree coming out of the soil, I mean, you can
So
just.
have we stopped evolution because we say disagreement is a bad thing? Or argument is a bad thing, or we just can't handle it. The bad thing is we don't handle it well.
There it is.
Again, this podcast is about leaning into the argument and the disagreement. I'm totally okay with being wrong and being shown I'm wrong, as a way of exploring more God within me, around me, through me, everywhere.
Are you trying to tell me that there's more God than?
Oh God, I hope so.
I hope so too. I think that's a given, right? That us trying to put our arms. What you see? So I heard this years ago. If we can imagine what God's like, then we have an imaginary God.
Yeah,
Completely, I guess I should say. I mean, there are revelations that we get of God's character along the way.
Islam has a term. I wish I knew the exact Arabic words. God is always more. God is always more. And I want to taste every day a little bit more. And that means I'm going to have to lean into different opinions,
Yes.
to different belief systems, not just religiously, just different opinions about what color the sky is. Wow. Tell me, how do you see the sky? How do you see God? How do you see our political system? That to me is a portal to the evolution that I'm hungry and thirsty for.
Well, you talk about portals. Shall I go here? One of our topics that I have on the list, for us to talk about and discuss and unpack. And that's this idea. You're talking about portals. You're talking about journey. You're talking about getting a higher aha moment, from the past to the present and then to the future. I think faith has friction with the concepts of karma, right, and reincarnation. And so we're going to talk about that. Right. We're definitely.
We're at the end of this episode, but I'm telling you, that could be a whole episode.
Not now. Yeah.
And why am I afraid of it? Why can't I just listen to somebody who's got a Hindu path, who absolutely believes in reincarnation?
Correct.
I don't know about you, but I've been reincarnated in 1 week, sometimes 25 times.
You look the same, though, for the most part. I don't know. Okay.
But everything has changed on the inside.
There we go. Well, I think that there's a lot to be uncovered there. And here's the word that I would encourage us to use, and get whatever, maybe.
Yep.
Because again, are you going to look and say, absolutely not?
Yep. Or absolutely yes.
Exactly.
I don't know. No absolutes.
Right.
Let's live in.
Put heaven and hell in there and all kinds of other different things, right? Maybe. But where I'm going to go with it, if I can say maybe, if I'm going to go to this place where I'm much more certain or have greater clarity in my opinion about it,
sure,
right? Then that's my paradigm, and that's okay, right? And sometimes
it is okay until you dig your heels in and you entrench yourself and you are blind, put your blinders on.
Right, you drive the stake in the ground. So it's all good. So these are some of the things that I'm looking forward to. We laid the groundwork in these first couple of episodes just because for the podcast and for the conversation and for anybody that might be tuning in over time, we're going to encourage them to listen to these two conversations to get a grasp of, what we're going to talk about from here on.
I'm going to call this podcast God's Playground. Leela. The Hindus have a term, Leela, which is this is all God's playground, this earthly existence. And on the playground, I fell off the monkey bars. I hit a kid coming up the slide and I was going down. That friction, I am still friends with that kid today.
Well, and I got pushed off a couple of times or pushed down, right? But that, again, that's all part of the navigating the life. Right?
Exactly.
So I'm looking forward now to taking each of these things that we've discussed to this point.
Yep.
And then whatever else is going to come, because it will.
Let's keep peeling. Let's keep digging.
That's right. So thank you again. We'll come right back at it again next week and try to deal with something specific.
And if you've
Again,
got specifics, I want to hear from them. I'm going to bring you some specifics that I'm working on in my life. I want you to bring them to me.
right. Well, I think our next week's topic, I'll put a little dangler out there for you to be pondering this. We're going to call it the tapestry of faith, and how we talk about faith, and we've sort of defined it as the mystery, but each religion and each culture has their own faith-based perspectives.
Yep.
And we're not going to get into a big classroom discussion about that, but I think it'll help frame a lot of the commonalities, a lot of the friction that happens in a common way between this religion and its insides, outsides,
Yep.
culture, you name it, other religions, because it's all part, and what they all experience the same challenges, maybe not in the same way. So
We're all walking a different path on the same mountain to get
there
to
you
the
go.
same peak.
So I think next week we're gonna peel the onion back on that. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
So I love your perspective. So thanks a bunch. We'll do it again next week. Take care.
Amen.